It was a phenomenon this year, probably one of the greatest, again, political upsets in American history, and it shook up the world. And the question is, why? What really happened?
I think people just got fed up with Washington, just that they couldn't get anything done.
To me, it was, he didn't sugarcoat anything. He wasn't politically correct. He didn't care. And so, like, that's something we need, because not everything's going to be fine in the U.S., and that's okay.
It's not going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be great again. Hey, welcome back. It's Table Talk Tuesday on Liquid Lunch. You're watching NEWSMAX TV's Liquid Lunch as you do every day, noon to 2 Eastern, Monday to Friday, and we're live from the downtown NEWSMAX studios. Today, we have a very special guest. You may know him as the former congressman from Colorado. Tom Tancredo joins us. He's an advisory board member at We Build the Wall. And he's a famous author of a Bush-era book, Immortal Danger, which talked about protection of our borders and how important it was for us to ward off this crisis. He's well ahead of his time. He's one of the most respected members of Congress in my eyes when he was serving the country. And now he's serving us in many other ways, trying to help our president keep another one of his campaign promises. Congressman Tancredo, thank you for joining us today on Liquid Lunch.
Sure, it's a pleasure.
So, hey, Congressman, Chris Ruddy, our CEO, put out an editorial yesterday where he talked about how the Democrats basically at this point have no choice left than to go for impeachment. It's like the Hail Mary of all Hail Marys. And this Democratic-leaning academic, Alan Lichtman, who's successfully projected the winner of the presidential campaign since 1984, says Trump is going to win and warned if you don't impeach him, Trump's back in 2020. What say you? You were around all the previous impeachment hearings. We control the Senate, the Republicans do. Is this worth the time and money they're putting into it?
Well, I think they think so. And after a while, in Congress as well as in a lot of other places, I suppose, a process gets rolling and eventually takes on a life of its own, even if there is a belief that it may not be the best thing. It actually becomes the only thing. And I think that may be what's happening. It really depends on a couple of things, I think, still. And that is, one, are polls that are indicating that that Americans are shifting toward impeachment, are they accurate? Are they the same thing as the internal polls that these parties take? And two, can they get any sort of bipartisan support? And they probably can. Certainly Mitt Romney is a perfect example of someone who will go over to that side. There are probably a couple of others. So if they think that they can make it a bipartisan approach, and if they think that the American public is moving in that direction, surely they will too. Because as the CEO said, it is the only thing they have. What are they going to argue about? The economy, the fact that we're not fighting in any wars around the world. I mean, they might not like the fact that both of those things are going well for us, but it's the truth. So they are stuck in this really bizarre situation, and they have the most ludicrous stable of candidates that they have to deal with. So, when you look at it, it does seem to me that it's taken on a life of its own in that respect, and they're moving in that direction that seems maybe inexorable.
Yeah, well, what we've been talking about and what Chris Ruddy wrote in his article yesterday is many of the polls that the left-wing media is citing, they have this impeachment at like 52, 53%. Most of these polls are skewed because they're registered voters, and we all know there's more registered Democrats in the country, so they don't tell you what the methodology is behind the poll. And on top of being at 52 or 53, down in the left-hand corner in little tiny font, it says margin of error 4.5. So for all intents and purposes, if it was a fair poll, 50-50 Dem Republican, Trump's probably at 45-55 impeachment on Republicans, Democrats, and 90% of the people on the Democrat side were the ones who were for impeachment before Ukraine. They're for impeachment. They don't care what it is. It's the same people they're recycling.
Absolutely right. That's what I meant by when I said that it depends on what their internal polls are showing. And if they're similar to the ones they're publicizing, that's when they think they'll go ahead. But they're probably not. And that's why you haven't seen a real and this whole idea of an impeachment inquiry. I mean, you're right. I've been around a while. It's true. I've never seen anything like it. In fact, if I had been around since the inception of the Republic, I would have never seen anything like it because this never happened before. It is a kangaroo court. There is no two ways about it. And they are pushing us. Here's the greatest danger, perhaps. Because let's face it, I don't think even if they get 2 or 3 Republicans in the Senate to shift, that's not going to change the outcome, and that he will not be convicted in the Senate. So he will still be there. So what's this really going to harm? Well, certainly it may harm his the president's ratings in the public, but more importantly, I think in the overall picture, it harms the country in a variety of ways. Using the quote whistleblower, who's nothing more than a rumor monger, that's all he really is. But using that as a reason to move toward impeachment, and a telephone call that is made between 2 heads of state, what that does in and of itself, that little thing, what it does to our ability to conduct foreign policy is horrendous. I mean, what foreign government, what foreign leader is going to trust the sanctity of the call, I suppose, if you get one from the president? Number 2, when you use this kind of tactic in the House, this kangaroo court, and that's really all you can call it. You can't call your own witnesses to, all the rules of law that have been in place for years for everybody in this system are out the window when you're the president of the United States. This is moving us to, indeed, the typical sort of banana republic. It does great damage to the system itself. It does great damage to America. But they don't care. Because as Corey Lewandowski said when he was actually in front of a committee, and I think it must have been a Republican, asked him, why do you think they're doing this? And he said, because they hate the president more than they like America. And I believe that is absolutely true. To them, of course, we know they don't like the America that you and I love. They hate it. So they don't care if this harms the structure, the moral structure, the moral fiber of the country when it comes to the rule of law.
No
they
doubt.
Don't care.
These are the tolerant folks, right up to the point where they don't like what you're talking about, and then they're no longer tolerant. Hey, Congressman, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your book, The Battle for America's Border and Security book, In Mortal Danger, was way ahead of his time. We've been talking about it on what Congressman from Colorado, Tom Tancredo, was talking about a long time ago. Congressman, please join us again for a Liquid Lunch anytime.
You bet. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break now, and we're going to come on back with Bill Cortez and talk a little more about what's happening with these cuckoo Democrat candidates. Liquid Lunch right after this.